feminism has to be and must be a very large and generous and open space.
Being a woman provides you with a totally different set of choices.
I think patriarchy exists everywhere and systems are aligned to benefit men.
I wanted to say to all women, we are all beautiful the way we are. We can't have a just, sustainable world unless women are at all the tables where decisions are made and they want to be there.
Hey, friends. I'm Kassia Binkowski. With me is the lovely Sabrina Mirage Naeem, and you're listening to a bonus episode of Breaking Glass. As it turns out, feminism is too big and too wild and too totally unruly to ever be contained in a single show format. So we've decided to offer up some extraordinary episodes. We're talking glimpses behind the scenes, teasers for future shows, previously unaired conversations, and intimate eavesdropping between Sabrina and myself. Get ready to feast your ears, fine people. Take a listen.
Kassia, we did it!
Dun, da, da, da.
This is the end of season 1. I know it's arbitrary, but we're saying this is
not arbitrary. Yeah. I mean, we've claimed it. We're naming it. We made it.
Okay,
it's
fair.
exciting.
And how many episodes have we done?
432.
That's what it feels
like. Like 42, I think is actually what it is.
I hope that those of you who have been with us since the beginning, who have followed us in this journey, have seen that we really have put our hearts and souls into this. It was really truly a passion project, something that we care so deeply about beyond the interesting conversations that we had with incredible women and men around the world. Frankly, it was beyond that. It was for us a movement. It was an opportunity to open the doors of these conversations and issues that maybe we're not hearing so much about, and life experiences of people far removed from our own. And that really provides empathy, and it provides a different lens for how we see the world. And what I wanted to do is reflect on the past season, talk about some of the lessons learned, talk about some of the things that we've taken away from this, and hopefully you guys have learned some things too.
Yeah, it's been very humbling, very energizing. And I think, more than anything, it's been very invigorating to hear these stories, to show up week after week, to connect with these guests in like very, very disparate corners of the world. It's been a real honor to create the space for those voices and those stories and to be able to listen. I mean, it really has felt like a great listening experiment for us. And I think that's kind of the funny thing about podcasting is you pour so much time and heart and resource and energy, and also it feels like such a selfish pursuit because we get to sit here and listen and connect with these people who want to show up and share their stories. And that's a huge honor.
It is. And frankly, we've busted our asses because, as we've mentioned, both of us have other jobs. Both of us have young families. We've got a lot of other things going on, which just goes to show that the time, the energy, the resource that we put into this was so purely out of love and from our hearts and from our souls and with a greater purpose. And even with all of the work that was put into it, it was truly a pleasure from beginning to end. And hopefully not end. This is just the pause button until season 2. And so let's kind of reflect, okay? Let's reflect on some of the things that we take away.
So I'm curious, any fangirl moments for you over the past season?
Oh, yeah. Pat Mitchell was, for me, I was like, Pat Mitchell.
I mean, that was one of the ones we went and we both were like a little nervous to kind of turn the tables on somebody who's interviewed so many really, really impressive individuals over the course of her career.
So true. And I remember it very clearly because we kind of go into these conversations feeling pretty good, feeling confident, and we never really know how it's going to go.
At least feeling prepared.
Yeah.
We've done our research, we feel pretty organized.
Well, we were organized with Pat Mitchell also, but we were nervous.
Very nervous. Very nervous.
And frankly, I think that conversation ended up being a phenomenal one. Like that episode was just so great.
I mean, she's a rock star. She's a rock star. She's a true legend. And, the lives that she's touched, the people that have listened to her voice. I mean, it was an honor to get to share her story for sure.
Yeah.
What about topics that inspired you the most? Like, what did you walk away kind of the most fired up by?
Well, what I wanted to do actually was to kind of go. So I did very little preparation for this episode. And what I like about that is I'm coming now months and months later to this conversation, just having remembered like the things that kind of stuck in my brain are there still. And I jotted down some notes because they were the conversations or the lessons or the notes that I kind of took away from different conversations that really stuck with me. And I want to share some of those. Starting with renowned elephant biologist, Dr. Winnie Kiru, who it was one of the earlier conversations that we had. And the thing that she said that like blew my mind when she was explaining that she was going through school and all of these research programs and having, and she had a young kid and other women in her program were falling out like flies and she was determined to stay in, but it was difficult for her. That we need to negotiate with those around us to fill the spaces in our lives.
I mean, she said, if anybody remembers anything from this conversation, remember that.
I think for a lot of my girls, I call them my girls, those who come into my space and I try to mentor them, I'm always saying, if you learn nothing else from me, remember, everything is negotiable.
Yeah. And it was such a different kind of perspective on an issue that so many of us face when we are entering a world that frankly is not prepared for women. It's not prepared for the many things that we need to sacrifice and the life stages that we face. And, thinking about going out into the bush for weeks on end. And we were considering like, okay, forget parenthood and pregnancy and all of that. Like, what about menstruation? What do you do when you don't have access to a bathroom for God knows how long and you're on your period, right?
Right. And we're not even talking about like the little girls in those communities who grow up without access. We're talking about the women who've clawed their way into careers and still don't have access. That's mind-boggling.
Right. And I loved how she put it. I loved her perspective. It really stuck with me, and it's something that I've kind of tried to instill in my own life as much as possible.
Absolutely. And let's go back to menstruation for a second. I think that's one of the things that infuriated me the most over the course of this season is the number of ways that women's health limits us personally and professionally for things that we have no control over. Everything from access to menstrual products, to pregnancy planning, to maternity rights, like the number of times that showed up in conversations. Mm-hmm. And that's something that we can't control. And it limits us in so many ways. Like that, I get angry. I look at the list of names that spoke about that. I'm like, I just get angry that that's
yeah.
the case.
We had obviously that conversation about menstruation with Michaela Bedard, who heads up Period.
Let's look at who's voting these. Who is in the state legislatures across the board? Are they overwhelmingly non-menstruators? Are they overwhelmingly people who have too much shame?
We talked about that also with Darcy Gechter, who was the first woman to kayak the Amazon from source to sea. And what do you do in that case?
Yeah, with Erin Luce Cutraro, it was like, we just need more menstruators in office. We need more people who have dealt with this, who think and plan their month or their day or their week with that perspective to be making decisions, because that's where empathy shows up.
That is because there is an empathy piece there. There's a connection with people. There's a compassion, an ability to listen. Look, not every woman is going to be the same on this, but it is a true, I think, value that women bring to the table in leadership. I appreciate the call out in the program design.
And what about Carly Lloyd?
Yeah.